Nice to meet you all. I wasn't expecting such a large group. Somehow I was thinking along the lines of 20 or 30 people. Right. I'm Andrei from the Romanian Academic Society. I'm here to have a discussion with you, mostly. I do have some slides for presentations, but I think it'd be more interesting for both of us if we have as much interaction as possible. So at any time, feel free to ask any question you want. I'll do my best to answer. What I understand is that your topic of interest and what I'll be discussing today is corruption in Romania. Now, you may have heard a lot of things about it. It's been on the news. We've even been interviewed a few months ago by Danish journalist who was interested in the anti-corruption struggle in Romania. Can anyone tell me anything about Romanian corruption that you might have heard before today? Sorry? I'm asking if you know anything about corruption in Romania, if you've heard anything.
Just that it's
Sorry?
All the time.
Okay. So yeah, it's quite famous for that. The Romanian Academic Society has been involved in studying the corruption phenomenon for quite some time, and the first thing you might be interested in seeing is this little map that we've made. This is a map of Romanian corruption, basically. It shows convictions based on files investigated by the National Anticorruption Directorate, the DNA, which is one of the most effective anti-corruption prosecution institutions in Europe, if not the world. The darker colors indicate a lot of corruption, a lot of convictions for deeds of corruption. The lighter areas, fewer such instances. Now, in drafting this map, we've looked at all of the corruption cases that have resulted in a conviction that have been investigated by the National Anti-Corruption Directorate, all from official press releases, ever since they were made official, ever since they were made public online. So this is the situation for 2010 to 2014. In total, there are over 3,000 cases that have led to convictions. And as you can see, if we select the county here, you'll have various other indicators. I'll just put this here to free up the map. You see a lot of inequality in terms of the distribution. You see dark areas like over there or in the southwest, and especially around Bucharest here. If you look, it says number of definitive convictions per 10,000 inhabitants, 4.71. That means out of 10,000 inhabitants in Bucharest, almost 5 have been convicted of corruption. That's a lot. This is because especially government funds are allocated in Bucharest, so national ministries, European funds, a lot of such cases happen in Bucharest, which is why you see such a high rate of corruption. Now, the reason we've been able to make this map is because we have access to data. It's because we have access to, come on in. So we have access to information about convictions. The National Anti-Corruption Directorate has been quite active in the past few years. There have been exponential increases in the number of convictions that they obtain per year. At some point, I think for the last year, we don't have the data, but for the last year you had 1,500 convictions. And this, you may not be aware, but they only investigate public funds or things related to public office. So mayors, local councillors, parliamentarians, even the former Prime Minister Victor Ponta is currently facing trial on corruption charges. And you may have heard that former Prime Minister Adrian Năstase has been convicted, has served his time in 2 different cases for corruption. So it was a big problem in Romania going all the way to the top. We still have no guarantee that it is in any way decreasing, but I'll talk about that a bit later. Now, reasons for the inequality. We get a lot of questions as to why the distribution of convictions in Romania looks like this. You would expect that in a centralized state, so not in a federation, you would expect to see a more homogeneity in regards to this. And this is the question we get most often. Why is this inequality? Why do you have dark areas like Bacău or Bucharest or Giurgiu and white areas like Sălaj where you have only 2 convictions in total? Why is that? If you look at the media, this is even more surprising because areas like Telorman or Mehedinți here, which is your very light color, are known by the media to be sort of hubs for local barons. Local barons is a name given to people with high office, such as the presidents of county councils, mayors, prefects, and so forth, with political connections at the very top, who have been described as sort of feudal lords. Basically, they control economic activity in the county. They control pretty much the allocation of funding, and they're basically landlords, right? They're basically feudal lords who control just about everything. And yet, in areas where you have the most famous, where you have such famous cases, like you saw over there, Mehedinți, where I'm pointing right now, or Telorman, the southern light area here, and even Sălaj, right here, you see there are hardly any corruption cases, hardly any convictions at all. The question here is why. And there are 2 reasons for this. The most obvious one is, of course, that local barons there have some sort of immunity based on their friendships, based on their political connections, and so forth. But it's not the only explanation. Another one might be that, simply put, the territorial offices of the DNA in those areas simply lack the funds to investigate large-scale corruption cases that you might encounter. Those areas are not free of corruption by any means of the imagination. It's just that proving these cases is extremely tricky. And then you have other cases like Bacău, where you've had over 100 people convicted in one file alone, one case alone for corruption, which explains